Hello, listeners. Welcome back as we are dropping the final episode in our series sponsored by our good friends at Railsware. Railsware is a leading product studio with two main focuses, services and products. They've created amazing products like Mailtrap, Coupler, and Titan apps, while also partnering with teams like Calendly and BrightBytes. They deliver amazing products and have happy customers to prove it. In this series, we are digging into the company's methods around product engineering and development. In particular, we will cover relevant topics to not only highlight their expertise, but to educate you on industry trends alongside their experience. In today's episode, we are speaking with Oleksii Yanchuk, product lead at Railsware, specifically for Mailtrap. Though he doesn't like to limit his activities to product development only, Oleksii has spent 6 years in product and project management and is keen on searching for insights and putting them to work. Oleksii, thanks for being on the show today. Thank you for being on Code Story.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Before we jump into our topic today, which, this episode's entitled A Story of Product Evolution Through Mistakes and Lessons Learned, we're going to dive all into your experiences as product lead at Railsware and Mailtrap. Before we do, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me and my audience a little bit about you.
So I've been in kind of software development and IT sphere around 10 years. I started as a person who was told to do whatever you want in a small growing team. At that time I was in affiliate marketing, especially in travel industry. And I had to pick up all jobs and all things that have to be done. So I did support, I did business development. I also didn't have resources for in-house engineers, but I had some budget for hiring some freelancers. And whatever it was possible to do, I was doing that. So actually I was covering almost everything that small growing. It wasn't startup, but a growing team and direction inside a big company. So that gave me some, skills and domain knowledge information, how everything can be worked. So not just focusing in, some one field. I'm more like a generalist, T-shaped person. So I did marketing, I do marketing and right now, but as team grows, of course, some directions became like their own teams, but I'm doing some close cooperations. Example between product and marketing here in Mailtrap as well. At some point, they suggested me, hey, do you want to do kind of product manager? As my CEO who was managing in-house team had to focus on some other things. And that's how I came into kind of managing and own product inside these engineers, in-house engineers. And that's how I get it and still doing that.
Very cool. I appreciate that story. Let's dive into it then. The story of Mailtrap starts with accidentally sending test emails to real users in 2011, right? That's the origination story there. How did Mailtrap evolve from an internal, quote-unquote, failed to a platform serving hundreds of thousands of users? And I'd say, how did that mistake spark the creation of Mailtrap? And what lessons did you learn about turning problems into opportunities?
The story was that Mailtrap is a product of Railsware. And at that time, Railsware was only a consultancy company. So we did projects for others guys. Still boutique, as an example, helped develop Calendly and others. And as we were developing the project for a client, it was a mistake. I think I'm always scary to send something to another email, but then you say hello world or some test to your real recipients. And people receive hey or just test, and especially if it's a large scale, it could be a problem. And actually, the guys decided to solve that problem. So to solve the problem that they had themselves, and actually it's one of the things how many products in Mailtrap and Railsware have been created. So from that time, as it was a solved own problem, so we didn't want to have the same mistakes they created. It wasn't even a project, I would say, at that time. Just to wait for people and utility like fake SMTP and start telling about that. And it appeared that it's a problem that not only Railsware at time had. And that's how Mailtrap appeared. So after, of course, it became a product that you can pay, more like SaaS oriented. But it appeared, as always, then you solve problems, especially that it's not only but has some feedback from others. It can become a business.
Super cool. Okay, so what made you decide to expand from email testing into email API SMTP delivery? And why was it harder than you expected? What led to that decision, and what specific challenges around deliverability, spam fighting, infrastructure, etc., caught you off guard?
I joined Mailtrap when we just been releasing our email API. There is few things that directed the company into not providing only sandbox like fake SMTP, but real email sending. First, email sending, email API market is huge. Though still, sandbox email product is still quite niche. Though, yeah, we have thousands of users from Fortune 500 companies as well. But due to the nature of business, it's not every people are used to do email testing. Usually they start to do that. Then they did some mistakes, as we talked, make Railsware to create Mailtrap for themselves. Or if they become big and they just want to have everything. So it's quite niche. Even still, we are number one product in that sandbox email testing. But it was obvious that there is some limitation. And of course, like as we've already been doing email, the logic was, okay, so we have all the users who are actively using our solution for sandbox emails. Let's provide them a way to reach real recipients' inboxes. We already have users. It looks like email. So it's a kind of logical next step in evolution, and the idea that we can use existing user base to expand the new product.
Using that approach makes sense. Can you walk us through the quote unquote splitting the product mistake and its long-term consequences? So your team decided to separate testing and sending into different repositories and isolated the VPC projects. What seemed like a good engineering decision at the time? And how did this create problems as you scaled? And if you could go back, what would you do different?
Going back and what we might do differently, it's not doing that, because right now we just finished merging those projects together. It's created extra costs. Isolation sounded great, but as you need to still have one product and many parts are the same, right? You use the same database of users, you need to use something else. And each time we had to create something. The team had to create the same like synchronization between both repositories. So we have to speak. It's rather, in our cases, it was like gRPC calls, but if you add some feature, it became like not one task to add in one place, but you always had to remember you added there. And delivering two projects, it's just more time consuming. And it's also created some other feature, make it a bit more complex, for example, to host our application in different regions. For example, making it available as a data residency in Europe to satisfy some privacy needs. If we do it just as we had with two apps, it created complexity. And it was growing, so at some point we just decided we're wasting time and allocated a few engineers just to do that. And we are actually very happy that right now we're almost finished. Still, yes, there is some things we have to wrap up, but looks much better right now. So yeah, we won't do that. I would say start simple, don't over-engineer. As always, well, we had to learn on our mistakes. And I think it's always, of course, depends. Maybe in some other case it would work. Another thing that we might be doing a bit different right now, we decided that we have to go hard and we have to host MTA. So it's Mail Transport Agency. So it's actually a software that creates SMTP connections, sends real emails. We don't, of course, we license it. So it's not our own product, but maybe it will be faster, as right now many companies, they just resell AWS SaaS. So it became like a wrapper of it, but you never know. It still gives us a lot of flexibility. We can control everything, but I'm not sure you can control this AWS SaaS as a user. So we can create separate. It became harder to host it, to configure it, to maintain it, but still we have advantages as we can tune each part of email sending process. But it took time.
Sure. Yeah, hosting your own piece of the puzzle there gives you the ability to control it. That makes sense too. And starting simple also makes sense as well. You can be more flexible. You can build on top of a part of the solution. But I appreciate you walking through that one.
I've been talking about that because I came after that decision. Reselling AWS SaaS or building product on top of it, it was one of the solutions that the team been thinking about. But we couldn't find out why it was some concerns about that, and we decided to go hard way. Yeah. But who knows?
Sure. Okay, let's move into your migration / switch from Redshift to Elasticsearch and the struggle there. What did that process teach you about technology decisions? Like you ran tests, evaluated alternatives, and still picked a database that didn't quite work for your use case. How do you balance through research with the reality that you can't always predict what will work until you're in production?
I can say that in this case, it's not the best example how we did it. So it's more like a lesson we had to learn. It was about mistakes and also maybe ideas to do everything ourselves. One of the things the time, of course, we did a lot of research as the team. I checked them, and different databases have been observed and what to use for saving logs, as we showing a lot of logs and stats for our users. So that was the decision. And I think the main thing here is that we choose a technology we didn't have an experience ourselves on. So our engineers didn't have already experience with that. And that time we also didn't ask like for special consultancy, some support, whatever, some experts who know it better than we. So we had to spend our time, learn lessons, optimizing it. And a year and a half ago, or almost two, it was obvious that it's not the right way to do. We had some limitations and we spent a lot of time in maintenance, and we started looking for alternatives. And this time we did it a bit different. Yes. How it actually finished. We started with hiring some experts in Redshift, and all of them confirmed that it's a great database, but not for the case that we used to it. And to make it work as we want, it would take significant time and resources. So we decided to move to OpenSearch. Why it's OpenSearch? Because we AWS, so it's Elastic, right? But rebranded and fork of Elastic. And this time we did it a bit different. So we started looking for people who have a lot of experience with that. And it really changed and the speed of delivery and estimation of the solution.
So, okay, this will be interesting. When do you buy external expertise versus relying on your own internal team? You mentioned a little bit finding Redshift experts in that last answer. Might overlap into that, but how do you decide when to hire outside knowledge? And how do you find the right consultants or contractors for these niche problems?
Right now, we try not to forget about that step. Then we onboard some new technology, because paying someone a few hours for his time, and if he has experience of years in that technology, it's really a deal breaker in terms of avoiding mistakes and make solution easier. The process is quite not very complicated. We are looking for experts. Sometimes we look for some guys in competitor companies if they're dealing with some problems, but many of them have NDAs. Though it sometimes gives us for some insights what's competitors' technology using, especially like it's a big market and we are not the only player who's solving that problem. And finding a guy, it takes time, but it's actually not hard as you think. You're just reaching people in LinkedIn, in X, Twitter, in social media, or you find some blog posts where people describe their own experience, how they solve that problem. So usually people who have experience, they're discoverable. And then just the problem, like to reach them and do they want to do it? Some of them just don't used to do such work as a consultancy, consultation per hour. Some and just sign NDA if somebody agree, onboard them. We have a call talking about our problem. She tells about their experience, and if we have a match, we just continue to work. It's sometimes we have experts who we work. In OpenSearch, we still have an expert in our Slack channel that right now we don't have so many questions, but time to time we have them, and it's just very convenient to double check something. Then you have doubts and not sure.
Okay, so let's go back to the email API SMTP feature for Mailtrap, right? You've got that built, you released it, you told me the story there of what helps the team to make that decision, but why didn't existing Mailtrap users immediately adopt it? And then what did that teach you?
The expectation, as I mentioned before, this idea that, okay, we have customers who use fake SMTP, we provide real SMTP plus API to send emails, and we'll just be swimming in money as we already have that audience and we have a lot of content marketing around emails. But we face the reality. The reality is that cost of switch is really high for some customers, especially if it works for someone and they're happy, they don't have major issues. with emails, and it's usually a critical part of many products because it's some sign-ups, flows, registrations, etc., some important notifications. And if it works for somebody, they don't want to switch. It has to happen something. The same story, like we have customers who are really big customers who can switch very fast, very ready to switch if they have some issue. Maybe they've been false positive blocked and support haven't been replied in that platform, and they need their emails to continue sending. As they have customers, they have businesses. All products, they have the same feature. They have one job to deliver your emails. But then something is not enough or something doesn't work, then it's a moment. Another thing is also some compliance issues, especially for big companies. We have been pre-approved vendor. Still for them, not a big deal. And sometimes money is also mostly not a factor to save. And we also don't position ourselves as a cheap alternative. So we can use market price. Money, and for big company, even plus $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a month, even if we might be a bit cheaper somewhere, it's not a deal breaker compared to the costs, how you need to pay for your engineers, support team to onboard new tool, procurement, etc. So it didn't work for everyone, but still we have some good cases. Then people they've been using Sandbox. They had some moment. They thought, okay, something I'm not happy with my current solution. And they think about Mailtrap and they reach us, and we try to be sell our support. So we're proud of our support team and our client service. And some switch to us, but it just didn't happen overnight when we launched a new product and everybody just start signing up to it.
So in that same topic, right, what business insights around deliverability, spam prevention, and compliance surprised you the most? I'm curious about, as you're going through that process, seeing people use it and seeing people's reactions to it, what are the areas or categorical areas that surprised you?
I'd say it just appeared a bit more complex and harder than we expect. Deliverability is one of the things that should be a stellar, as if it's bad and people paying for you, they just also switch. And if you can solve a problem, it's very related also to fighting with spammers and to gatekeep them from the system, as one spammer can impact, for example, if they own some shared IP addresses. There's some customers who don't qualify or haven't purchased dedicated IP addresses. Spammer can impact their reputation of those addresses, and so bad actor can impact sending of good actors. And they're smart guys. So it's a big industry, a lot of money there. And phishing, spam, also actually cold outreach. We forbid cold outreaching, as it's back Google and others, they treat it as a spam. Mostly because you're not expecting to receive that email. And so we decided that we have to play by the rules. And building some compliance system, it was actually a hard decision, and it's not very easy because in some way you want that onboarding process and the person starts sending with you as fast as possible, so don't have a lot of friction. But at the same time, you want to make sure that they are not tricking you. And of course, it's impossible to create 100% ideal compliance system, so you have to find some balance there, and still even working on that for a couple of years. Have a separate squad whose responsibility is that area. Sometimes still some false positives happen. Even we introduce some AI content checking on the website who sign up to us, etc. Still mistakes happen. Still also spammers get into sometimes, but we're actually quite happy with the results. And it took more time and more dedication. We thought that, okay, it couldn't be not a separate role, but appeared it should be a separate focus. And also deliverability, we started learning on our own mistakes, but then we hired a guy. And right now it's even a small deliverability team. And it's only their daily job to make sure to consult customers, onboard them if they switch from others, but also to monitor everything and proactively make the system good for everyone.
So, okay, you touched on this a little bit in your answer, but I want to dig in a little more because email delivery isn't just about infrastructure, right? there's a whole ecosystem, postmasters, anti-spam systems, and then a lot of what you mentioned, compliance requirements, right? What aspects of this sort of business were most unexpected? And you mentioned being surprised by a few things before, but I'm curious about how they shaped your product strategy.
They mostly shaped that we have a separate guild, and it became one of the focus. If we have some tasks that have to be delivered, stories to be done in that way, usually the highest priority for everyone. So because it impacts everyone, all our customers sometimes. It's not about only infrastructure. It's actually a lot of manual work. Some things can be automated, but sometimes like you have a problem with specific internet service provider mailboxes in local region, some specific country, an example like France or Germany or even others. And you have to kind of reach their postmasters. Sometimes they just don't reply you. Sometimes it's hard to reach. It became when they expected. Right now, of course, we already established some at least communication with where we need to be. It's became easier when we have a separate person who already been in that. So actually how we did it, so we started the same. It's not a mistake, but maybe, we started deliverability expertise in-house, but we decided that, we need to hire somebody with expertise there because it's a full-time job. And that's how we got a guy who been already working in that. Another thing that we buy a system that delivers emails infrastructure, but a lot of aspects, it's what you send, when you send. So it's on the client side and we have to educate customers. So that's why we proactively see if we see some problems, we reach them and say, guys, you need to fix it. And that's why we include our deliverability services for some higher plans without extra, because it has to be cooperation, because we don't control most of the time what people send, when they send it. And if it's not just simple transactional emails, and especially if we're talking about like bulk marketing emails, simple mistakes, there are millions of articles how to do that, best practices. We also have our own deliverability guide, that it's not something that we make up, it's just general knowledge, but still people, some don't know, some just close eyes, some think that, okay, it will work. It might work, but in long-term perspective, if your domain reputation goes down, it will be bad for you, for customer, and sometimes it's really hard to fix. It's a lot of work, much more work than it was expected, and communication with clients is what we have to do.
Arlene, that makes sense. I appreciate you walking through that. Okay, Oleksii, last question. So looking at Mailtrap's 13-year journey, right? 13-year journey of bringing this product to market through all kinds of unexpected things and learnings. What's your philosophy, right, on failing fast versus building solid foundations? Getting something to market quick and learning from the things that work and that don't, or building systems that are meant to not fail from the very beginning. Tell me your perspective there.
We try to find balance. Perspective is, philosophy is trying to find balance, because we are a business that other businesses are very dependent. And we put a lot of time and efforts in reliability, in making sure that our services are reliable. We had to build and make sure that we have all processes for like support on duty, pager duty, if something goes down, because if service doesn't work, it became a problem. And at the same time, it's hard to get customers. And if we are down and for significant time, people, the same as they switch from competitors, they can switch from us, because it can also losing money. It's some things, as we critical infrastructure for many businesses, we try not to make any sacrifices, especially in infrastructure and being reliable. We, as recently had that Cloudflare outage, it also impacted us a bit. So as we also used DDoS protection, and it was hard to switch. As we switched, but we've still been waiting for availability of the dashboards Cloudflare. We learn our lessons, and so we have postmortem inside, and right now I have steps what we have to improve to be ready for that. Of course, it happened when almost the whole internet is down. It's hard to do anything, but still, we are working in that direction. In these things, we try not to save time and money, but do it proper as core our value. And in terms of experiments and other things that, UI, etc., where you can do, it's less risky. And I think in those things, you can do experiments. You have higher tolerance for failures, mistakes. You just test what works on that. But as I say, it's about like our thing as delivering emails. If we might be not such important for our customers and uptime should be our priority, we might be also doing something else with core infrastructure.
Excellent. That's super cool, and I appreciate that balance there. Oleksii, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Mailtrap is an incredible product serving the needs of teams, but it took many turns to arrive at its current state. And on its 13-year journey, you and the team have learned many lessons from releases. You've been made aware of all that makes up the ecosystem of a product like this, and learned how to balance building solid foundations versus failing fast. Appreciate you being on the show today and enlightening our audience on all these things across this journey. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting. It's really my pleasure. Ready to help everyone who needs to send and deliver emails.
Oleksii has really shown how releasing and maturing a product into the wild of the market can lead to many twists and turns, from which you have to learn quickly, adapt fast, and ship foundational software that is flexible with the market needs. Thank you for listening today. If you would like to learn more about Railsware, please visit their website at railsware.com. That's RAILSWARE.com. And thanks again for listening.